Okay, so here we are back in Power BI Desktop. And what we're going to do is go through each of the tables in the model and annotate the columns with the metadata properties that we discussed earlier. So let's start with contacts. We'll go over to the data view. And this ID column on the contact isn't particularly interesting, so we're going to hide that in the report view. Contact name and title look fine. Contact city, if we go over to the modeling tab, the data category is uncategorized, so it didn't manage to guess that that's a city. So go ahead and set that as city. The rest of that looks okay. In custom demographics, we probably don't care about showing this particular customer ID, so we'll hide that one. Age, now this is interesting. It turns out this was imported as a string column because it came across in that property bag. So we need to convert that to a number. There we go. Now it's actually a number. And by default, it'll try to sum those. Probably don't want to sum ages. If we're going to show any aggregates of age, it's going to be average, so we'll change that. And in the customers table, customer ID is meaningful, and it automatically figured out that we shouldn't summarize those. So far, so good. Full address, that can get a data category of address. Same thing with street address. City is a city, and country is a country. Now over in the orders table, the order ID is meaningful, but we probably shouldn't be counting them by default. That should be set to don't summarize, because it's not actually a numeric value. Customer ID, we don't really need, and product ID, we don't really need. Quantity is summing by default, that's fine. Order date, I think we would like a slightly more compact format that doesn't include the time, since the time information is not interesting. Same thing with ship date. There we go. Discount, probably don't want the sum, again, like age, we probably want the average discount by default. Now order year, even though it's a number, shouldn't be summed, so don't summarize on that one. Same thing with order month. And ship year, and ship month. Now in products, let's take a look here. The ID column is actually meaningful to users, and it said as don't summarize already, so that one's fine. Name, description, those all look okay. Price, summing the prices seems all right. Quantities, that's fine. Supplier ID, this is just a foreign key. Users don't want to see foreign keys, so we'll hide that. Size, maybe we don't want to sum the sizes by default, but average them by default. All right, so far so good. Let's take a look at returns. All right, so the return date, probably want a slightly more compact representation. That's good. The customer ID and product ID, we wanted to hide those, but we also wanted to show the customer name and product name. So let's go ahead and add a new column. We'll use the DAX function related in order to pick a column from another table to show. So there's the customer name column, and we'll locally call that cust name. It's just for display purposes. Do the same thing with the related product name from the products table. I'll call that prod name. Okay. Now the quantity we probably want to sum, that's fine. Return year should not be summed, so don't summarize on that one. And same thing with return month. That looks good. And then the last table, suppliers. Supplier ID is meaningful, don't summarize. Name and preferred, those both look fine. The next thing for us to do is to add some synonyms. Now if you recall from earlier, we had some terms that were not recognized at all by the system. Which parts did eRigby return, and which items did eRigby return? To add synonyms to the products table, we'll go over here to the relationship view, And on the Modeling tab, click on Synonyms. Select the Products table, and a synonym of product is part or item. I don't see anything else in the Products table that we need to add synonyms for. Let's take a look at the Returns table. We have the return date column. We might want to just ask for date of the return, or down here the year or the month of the return. We've got cust name and prod name columns that don't really need any particular synonyms because we're not going to ask about those directly. If you want to talk about the customer name or the product name, you'll ask about those in the products table and the customers table. So we don't really need synonyms on those, but they don't really hurt anything. Take a look at customers. Customer might also be, let's say, a client. The rest of those all look okay. Orders might be a purchase. We probably want to do the same thing here. If we talk about the date of an order, we mean the order date. We mean the year of an order, and then the month of an order. Good. Okay. Customer demographics. Again, the term here doesn't really matter because nobody's going to ask about this. Age and gender are fine. Suppliers table. This looks okay, except for this column. We're not going to ask about the preferred of the supplier. We might ask about the preferred status of a supplier. And in the contacts table, we might want to just ask about the name of a contact, or the title of a contact, or the city, the phone or phone number of a contact. That looks good. So now it's time for us to go back to our questions list and see what we managed to fix. Back to the report view, open Q&A. Let's try list orders for eRigby. That looks good, the orders for eRigby. So we'll add that. Delete it from our broken questions. All right, how about who bought a cog? Still not quite right. It's not recognizing anything about bought, so we'll leave that on the broken list. Returns. Returns now works correctly. We're seeing the customer name and product name since we added those related columns. So add that. Count the returns by year. Looks good. Now we're getting a count for each year. We'll add that. How about count orders by year? Excellent. It's counting them by order year. We'll add that as well. How about which parts did eRigby return? It's getting that mostly right. Notice it didn't understand the word did here. It's able to piece together the understanding because it recognized the word parts, recognized eRigby, and it recognized that we're talking about returns. So it gets the right answer for not quite the right reason, but close enough that I think we can declare victory. So we'll go ahead and add that. And the same thing should happen for which items did eRigby return. That's good. I'm going to go ahead and leave this one on the broken questions list just so that we can fix this problem with did later and verify that it's working. Now, how about average age of customers? There, that looks better. That looks like an average age. So we'll go ahead and add that one as well. So let me save my suggested questions list and clean up my broken questions list. Give myself just a little bit more room to work and start asking a few additional questions. So how about, since it understands average age of customers, let's try who is the oldest customer. Now it recognized the word oldest because it has some knowledge of the meaning of age, but its guess is wrong. Here it's thinking that it has something to do with customer demographics because the age column is in the customer demographics table. We'll have to fix that, but for now, we'll put that in our broken questions list. All right, how about largest product? Now here, even though it knows about sizes, the system doesn't have anything mapping size to large at this point, so it doesn't know what largest means, so we'll have to teach it. Now, right now, we'll just put it in the broken questions list and come back to that later. All right, other terms that it might not recognize. How about which products are out of stock? Now here, Q&A is taking a guess. It sees that stock is the end of quantity in stock, so it thinks it might have something to do with that. You do see the out-of-stock products here, but it would be better if it would actually understand that phrase. So again, something that we'll have to teach it later. So for now, it goes in the broken questions list. All right, how about what is the discount on order 2? It looks like it understands it. It understands discount, it understands order, it understands 2, but it's mapping this to orders where the discount is 2, so that's not quite right. So we're going to have to add that to our broken questions list as well. It seems like it should understand that, but the problem, as it turns out, is in this word on. If you say discount for order 2, it does the right thing. So we'll add that to our working questions list. Now in the next lesson, we'll go back and try to fix up some of these questions, particularly the ones where there are terms that it doesn't understand that aren't just synonyms for tables and columns in the model.